Peace be with you. Throughout the Quran, God gives us stories about societies that have existed before us and what kind of mistakes they have made and the consequences they suffered for those mistakes. The most famous of these is the Pharaoh and his people. They are mentioned throughout the Quran, and a large portion of the Quran consists of stories about these people. I'm going to share these stories and lessons of this because this is relatable to our own world. Pharaoh is just a placeholder for your average leader. It doesn't matter if you live under dictatorship or a monarchy or even democracy. You have people in power and you have a political class that seek to govern your actions, and they are giving you advice and trying to rule you by fear, and this is exactly what happened with Pharaoh and his people, and this is exactly why we should learn that lesson. So it doesn't matter if you're an Egyptian, it doesn't matter if you're Saudi Arabian, it doesn't matter if you're following English monarchy, it doesn't matter if you're following American democracy, Chinese dictatorship, communism, it doesn't really matter. It's all the same thing. The lesson of the Pharaoh applies to all of it. It is a very important lesson, and I suggest everybody listen carefully because this is your life and this is your existence, just like mine. The first thing that the Quran tells us about the Pharaoh is that he was an evil man who urged people to evil. And we know the definition of evil as Muslims. Anything that God hates is evil, and anything that God loves is good. In the 28th chapter of the Quran, verse 38, we are told that he told his people, "O chiefs, I know no God for you but myself." So he urged his people to what is in Arabic termed shirk, associating partners with God, making himself into a God. So the greatest evil. Also in the 28th chapter of the Quran, verse 4, we are told, "Surely the Pharaoh exalted himself in the land and made its people into parties, weakening one party from among them. He slaughtered their sons and let their women live. Surely he was one of the evildoers." A resemblance to that is the American slavery, right? Just what happened recently. They divided people into two classes, those who have rights and those who do not. And that is exactly what Pharaoh did before them. So his people followed him in this. They looked at this and they knew that was evil, but they still followed him. In the 8th chapter of the Quran, verse 54, we are told, "In the manner of the people of the Pharaoh and those before them, they rejected the communications of their Lord, therefore we destroyed them on account of their faults, and we drowned the Pharaoh's people. They were all unjust." People who do that kind of evil are all unjust, right? The basic command from God is justice, and when you start doing that to people, there is no justice in you. So we know that the Pharaoh himself was an evil leader, and his people were unjust because they were following him in the evil that he was commanding them. He was calling himself a god and telling them to enslave innocent people and brutalize them and kill their sons while sparing their daughters. We are also told that these were dishonest people who broke their promises, right? And you can see that now when people make treaties, countries make treaties with each other and then they break them. You can see that some people are just dishonest. In the 7th chapter of Quran, verses 135 and 136, we are told, "But when we removed the plague from them till a term which they should attain, behold, look, they broke their promise. Therefore we inflicted retribution on them and drowned them in the sea because they rejected our signs and were heedless of them." Then we are told why Pharaoh's people followed him. So some people followed him for political reasons because they thought he was a good guy, right? And if you want for example, if you want to relate that to the American system of slavery, the slave owners thought that whoever was advocating slavery was a good guy because it benefited them, and the same thing for people. But others were just going along with it because they were afraid, and this is exactly what the Quran tells us happened in the time of the Pharaoh. In the 10th chapter of the Quran, verse 83, we are told, "But none believed in Moses except the offspring of his people on account of fear that Pharaoh and his chiefs, lest he should persecute them. And most surely the Pharaoh was arrogant in the land, and most surely he exceeded limits." Try to oppose your government when it goes to war. It is very, very difficult. Try to oppose a tyrant. It is very, very difficult. And we have many examples throughout the world where you can easily lose your life just by speaking out against a tyrant. So fear is a reality of political life. But God tells us this is one of the reasons why Pharaoh's people followed him. We are also told that some of them followed the Pharaoh because they were proud. In the 10th chapter of Quran, verse 75, we are told, Then did we send up after Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh and his chiefs with our sign. Then did we send after them, after previous messengers, Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh and his chiefs with our signs, but they showed pride and they were a guilty people. If you look at any powerful nation now, they think that they're right because they're powerful, just like the Pharaoh's people. So some people follow the Pharaoh because they were simply powerful and they thought that they were right because of that. And that is the case today. My government, for example, here in the United States of America, thinks that it's okay to go around the world bombing people, and they don't understand the kind of evil that they're doing. Now, a lot of us oppose it here at home, and we're vocal about it, but we can't stop it. But other people here in the United States of America support that because they think that might equals right. And that is what the people of the Pharaoh did. And this is just not the United States of America. People in the Arab world do this. People in Asia do this. People in Africa do this. Even people who call themselves Muslims and Christians and Jews do this. They all do this. There's a large proportion of people who believe that might equals right. But Pharaoh didn't only rule by fear, In the 40th chapter of the Quran, verse 29, we're told, O my people, yours is the kingdom this day, being masters in the land. But who will help us against the punishment of God if it comes to us? The Pharaoh said, I do not show you anything but that which I see, and I do not make you follow anything but the right path. So he is a political leader that's telling the people, I am telling you the right thing to do. Just like our political leaders are telling us, this is the right thing to do. But ultimately, we know what happened, right? God tells us that he led them to destruction. In the 20th chapter of the Quran, verse 79, we are told, and the Pharaoh led his people astray, and he did not guide them right. Also, we are told that when he was dying, he realized his mistake and tried to become a Muslim at that time, but it was too late. So that tells us the lesson that even these leaders who pretend that they know everything don't. In the 10th chapter of Quran, verse 90, we're told, and we made the children of Israel to pass through the sea, and Pharaoh and his armies, his hosts, followed them for oppression and tyranny, until when drowning overtook him, he said, I believe that there is no God but he in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am of those who submit. He said, I am a Muslim. And last thing I'm going to say here, because the video is already 8 minutes, is that the Quran teaches us that God destroyed the Pharaoh and anyone who followed him for any reason. He drowned them all, and then the Pharaoh will lead them to the fire at the day of judgment. In the 40th chapter of Quran, verses 45 and 50, we're told, so God protected him from the evil of what they planned, and the most evil punishment overtook Pharaoh's people, the fire. They will be brought before it morning and evening, and on the day when the hour shall come to pass, make Pharaoh's people enter the severest of punishment. And when they will enter it, they will contend with one another in the fire, and the weak will say to those who were proud, we were your followers. Will you then avert from us a portion of the fire? Those who were proud will say, surely we are all in it. Surely God has judged between the servants. And those who are in the fire will say to the keepers of hell, call upon your Lord that he may enlighten to us one day of the punishment. They will say, did not your messengers come to you with clear arguments? They will say, yes. They will say, then call. And the call of the unbeliever is only in error. The lesson of the Pharaoh in the Quran is that there is no excuse to follow anyone for any reason who urges you to do evil. The messengers brought the message, and it is very clear what is expected from us. So neither fear, nor pride, nor worldly benefit is an excuse to do evil things. As the world is rushing into probably another war, a world war, it is very important for people to heed this message because your soul may depend on it. There is no excuse following evil people. That is what the Quran teaches. It's better to die. But that's not an easy thing to do. Peace be with you.